First Coast. I told you, it's chamber days. I mean, you got great weather, and come back when you have some more time, and we'll certainly play golf. We love to do that. Next, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Jacksonville Area Port Director, Jennifer Bradshaw, who led CBP's response in Puerto Rico following the Hurricane Irma and Maria. Jennifer, you here this morning. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Also with us from the U.S. Coast Guard, Sector Jacksonville Captain and of the port, Mark Vaughn. Mark, I know you've been with us. Good to see you, sir. From the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Jacksonville District, Colonel Andrew Kelly. Colonel Kelly. Thank you, sir. Thank you for everything you do for us. Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce President, Nancy Quiones. Nancy, we haven't met, but it's good to see you this morning. Thank you for joining us. JAX U.S. Partner President Andre Wallace. I know I saw Andre, haven't seen you. Good morning, Andre. And leadership from JAXPORT's 3 Puerto Rican ocean carriers, Tote Inc. President and CEO Tim Nolan, who I don't think is with us, but is on his way. I think he has about a 5-minute ETA. Crowley Maritime Chairman and CEO Tom Crowley. Tom, are you here? Tom, good morning. And Trailer Bridge CEO and President Mitch Luciano. Mitch, good morning. I tell you, it's a very important partnership, and we look forward to the MOU signing at the conclusion of today's board meetings. But I want to again welcome all of you and all the other people this morning. Thanks for being part of the meeting, and thanks for being here this morning. Now on to the approval of the minutes. I have a motion from one of my fellow members from the prior board meeting to approve our minutes.
So moved. Seconded.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, public comments. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board at this time? You have anybody? I understand there are none with us. So now we will move on to our reports. We have a light agenda early part of our meeting, but a lot at the end. But Mr. James Bennett, you recognize to your reports on engineering and construction update. James?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and guests. I do have a couple projects I'd like to brief you on to let you know the status of some of our current construction projects. I'm going to talk about 3 different projects, and I'm going to lead off with our major project, which is the berth reconstruction here at our Blunt Island Marine Terminal. We are constructing almost another 1,300 lineal feet of our wharf. This is our phase 2 project. If you recall, we finished the first project about 3 years ago. This is our second project. It's divided into phase A and phase B, and I'm glad to say phase A is done, and we're well underway with phase B. I've got some photos here, and the first one I want to show you is an aerial photo that was taken after the last board meeting, and then I'm going to follow up with some additional photos that was taken a few weeks later, and I want to show you some differences between the two. This is an aerial photograph, and you can see from the top, on the water side you see a lot of dots in the water. Those are where we remove the decking, and you still have panels that are being removed along this area. But all of those dots are piles that were there before that are having to be removed. Behind that, you can see where we built the sheet pile wall. We started from the right of the screen going to the left, and you can see the sheet pile wall is almost to the end, almost to the far left. And then finally, the last section is the 100 gauge crane rail beam. This is where we're building driving the battered piles poured in the cap in order to install the 100 gauge rail for the larger gantry cranes. And what I want to show you is in the next photo, on the waterfront itself, you don't see all those little white dots. You don't see those white dots because most of those piles have now been pulled since the time of this first photo and the time of the second one a couple weeks later. You can continue to see that there are a few because there are some piles that have repairs over the time that you could not easily extract, so we're having to take secondary steps. But what you can see is the deck. In a lot of the places, the old bridge deck has been removed, and we've removed most of the piles, so we continue to make good progress. You'll also notice in the middle of the screen close to the excavator, the sheet pile wall is almost completed. So that's a big step in finishing up the sheet pile walls, as well as the 100 gauge crane rail. The piles are driven. We're in the final stages now of forming up the pile cap for the beam rail and moving forward with that. So again, a considerable amount of progress has been made over the last month. This second phase is actually going very smooth. The First one, we had some challenges with the cofferdams. This one is going very smooth and making good progress on it now. This project was originally a $51 million construction project. We've had a number of purchases that we did through our tax savings purchase orders, so we don't pay sales tax on some of the major components. But as a result, we ended up still having paid out about $19,500 to the contractor. We got about $13.5 million, not thousands, millions. Wished it was thousands, it's in the millions. We got about $13.5 million left to pay the contractor before we complete the project, which is anticipated to complete in this December. This project is one of our waterfront projects. It is funded at a 75% FDOT funds and 25% JAXPORT. So again, FDOT is a vital part of our overall construction for this wharf. The next project is a project that doesn't bring a lot of fun. It's a behind-the-scenes project. It is the creation of our dredge material management area cells to create capacity for us to continue with our dredge maintenance. This is where we're building new toe dike walls. If you take a look at the aerial photograph, this is an aerial from the water side. The cell that we're working with is cell B. It's located, runs around the perimeter of cell A, and we're reconstructing or building a new area for the material. And the way we're doing that is we're building a toe dike wall that's about 25 foot high. We're excavating material from the site to create some additional capacity to build that toe dike wall. And as we build that toe dike wall, we start relocating the material from cell B over to place it in cell A. And the reason we do it in this manner is because the new toe dike wall isn't designed to handle hydrostatic pressures and things of all the water, and it doesn't require additional permitting. So this was a way to build the site, to create capacity without going through a lengthy permitting process, but yet still gaining capacity. The project continues to move. You can see the top left photo is where they are moving material with a drag line from cell B and placing it over in a portion of the toe dike area. We've continued to make our way all the way around the cell, and you can see we're just about completion of all the construction for the toe dike wall, and so the contractor will now continue to remove the material and place it in this area to the far end of the cell. So again, we continue to make great progress on it. The material, as I showed you last month, is not usable material in any manner, but it has to be kept on site, so we continue to make progress there. This project, again, is well ahead of schedule. The contractor mobilized in late December. He's making tremendous progress. We actually expect him to finish up around August of this year, well ahead of the schedule. This, too, is a project that is funded in 50% partnership with the FDOT in order for us to continue to create capacity here at our DMMA sites. And our third project and final I'm going to mention today is the August Drive sheet pile walls. As you drove in and turned off Heckscher Drive coming into the cruise terminal, you crossed our August Drive bridge. And that bridge was built by the city a number of years ago before it became JAXPORT-owned roadway. And the bridge itself is in great condition. However, the sheet pile walls themselves have deteriorated over the years and are failing. We made a temporary repair a couple of years ago until we could build this new sheet pile walls. That at the time when it was built, they did not have placed cathodic protection on the sheet pile walls. The new sheet pile walls does have cathodic protection. When you take a look at the project, you can see photos from each end of the project. But on the right side, I want to show you what we're building. We're actually putting in new sheet pile walls around the perimeter of each end of the bridge. And I'm just showing you here the southern end of the bridge with what we're doing. We've actually placed the walls far enough out such that if we ever want to widen the bridge, we can do so without having to modify the sheet pile walls again. So we continue to make progress on that. There's some photos of the sheet pile walls being installed. He's already now crossed the road as well and come down the opposite side. So making good progress with the sheet pile walls. This project, again, is one that started off as a $2.3 million project. We've had some tax savings purchase orders that will come to being. They haven't yet, but this project is funded as a 50-50 basis with the Florida Department of Transportation as well. It's an important project in order for us to maintain access into this site, not only for the cruise operations in the future, but also maintain access here for our auto processing capabilities. But again, FDOT has well over $1 million in this project as well when you complete all the construction and the engineering side of it. So those are my three key construction projects I wanted to touch base on. I will tell you we've got some additional projects upcoming in the future that you'll hear about. One is the underdeck repairs that we continue over at our Talleyrand terminal. We've done a number of these projects. We're on the last project now. We awarded the construction contract last month, and now we're in the process of finalizing the contract documents and getting the contractor to mobilize. And then over the next couple months, you'll see additional projects related to creating dredge material management area capacity in our spoil sites, because again, that's a critical project for us as well. And with that, I'm glad to take questions.
James, thank you. Any questions for James on those reports? Great job, James.
Thanks, sir.
Again, as always, I mean, you talk about things about spoil sites and underdeck repairs. It's sometimes, it's not the shiny object, but the port doesn't work without you and your team doing those things and keeping everything operational and moving forward. So thank you for everything that you do. Next up, CFO Beth McCaig has provided us with our financial highlights as we often do, and she will now present the monthly financials and vital statistics to the board this morning. Beth?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to the board and to our special guests. Glad to have you with us today.
Beth, before you start, I apologize. My fault. I was handed a note. I wanted to, before you got there, CEO and President of TOTE, Tim Nolan, I think, has joined us. Tim, are you here? Is my note correct? Tim, good to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning. I apologize, Beth. Continue on.
Thank you. So in front of you, you have our March numbers, and we're very glad to report that we had solid earnings from each segment of our core cargo businesses. We reported revenue of $5,573,000. And these results were led by container operators throughout our organization. We reported $3 million in container revenue, and it was a highlight of the year, number one, and it was led by our Puerto Rican ocean carriers. So we are delighted to be able to report that in February. You can note that when we did our budget last year, we zeroed out our cruise revenue component until March of this year. So March was the first month that we were hopeful that we might see some revenue, and we had a budget number of $285,000. Of course, the CDC continues to halt cruise operations, so we had zero revenue in that segment. Nevertheless, we were ahead of budget overall on our total revenue. So we're very, very glad about that. Expenses are well controlled. We have relaxed the cost containment program we were in slightly to a level I would call highly disciplined. We are making sure that, especially in our equipment area, we're maintaining all of our equipment and spending the right kind of money so that we can remain productive throughout the port. I would turn your attention, though, to our 6-month numbers. We're halfway through our fiscal year. We are tracking total revenue at $32.8 million. This is just about, this is $3.9 million ahead of budget. And of course, our budget was conservative as there was so much uncertainty in our world as we put the budget together last year. But we are continuing to feel strength in our numbers as we go through the year. The results were helped by some non-operating income, such things as layup of certain ships who were here for repair. But overall, segments in all areas, containers, autos, our break bulk is all looking very, very strong. Major expenses remain well controlled. You can see we're $1,128,000 under budget. We do have the one unpredictable expense, berth maintenance expense, but we are under budget there at this point in time. And barring the unforeseen, we expect that we'll come in just about on budget of 5.5 in that category this year. Our vital stats, I just draw your attention to our auto revenues and our auto units at 332,000. We're very confident that we'll make our numbers in this category by the end of the year. And again, container revenue, very strong. Finally, our balance sheet remains very stable. We keep our cash target right about $16 million. Our accounts receivable are turning normally. And the line of credit, we've had no additional borrowings, just as we have planned. We will tell you that we submitted our first invoice to FDOT for their contribution, the first part of the construction of Contract C, harbor deepening. That bill was paid, and we in turn were able to repay the city the first payment on the $37 million bridge loan that they made to us for this purpose. So overall, we're very pleased with the stability of our income at 6 months in the year and are feeling more confident month to month as we go towards the final of 2021. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to respond.
Thank you, Beth. Any questions, fellow board members, for Beth? So FDOT's paid their money and we paid the city. It's a great relationship. I think.
That's right.
Good. That's good to hear.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Robert Peak will now present his commercial highlights report as he does each meeting for us. Robert, thank you for being here and good morning.
Well, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the board and the audience. Due to our special event immediately following the board meeting, I will give a shorter report this month, and then next month I'll plan on giving a full report. But today, I am pleased to announce that JAXPORT has secured new regularly scheduled container vessel service from a major ocean carrier. And I wanted to give a little context about that. So as I've reported in the past, the single most important action we can take to build our international container business is to secure new vessel service from an ocean carrier. So in our new 5-year strategic plan, we have set a goal of bringing at least one new vessel service to JAXPORT each year for each of the next 5 years. And this new service is the first at JAXPORT since we adopted our plan earlier this year. The carrier has asked that we not yet name them publicly, so we will honor that. But their service will start right away in short order here, and that'll be an annual service for us. So we first identified this specific service back in January of 2020 as one we thought would be a good fit for us, a good target. We've been working ever since on it. So the sales cycle on it was well over a year. That's not unusual for a major piece of business for us. This new service, which we call Project Charlie, is significant in a couple of different ways. The first is the direct impact to us. So we're looking at about 20,000 TEU a year and about $700,000 in new revenue impact for us annually. So as you know from my prior reports, this is many times greater than the what our largest individual shippers might bring when I announce new shippers every month. So for examples, I'll just show these are new examples you haven't seen yet because this is new business over the last month that we've secured. The first is Project Bell. Project Bell is a food exporter which was experiencing a lot of congestion at another port out of state. We successfully sold JAXPORT as a congestion-free alternative. And so the company has shifted its volumes to us. About 2,000 TEUs a year will now shift to JAXPORT. And this will generate revenue for us for about $34,000 a year. And the other example I'll share is Project North. This is a Florida company. It imports decorations and materials for large retailers. It's about 350 TEUs a year. Shifted to JAXPORT, its revenue is about $10,000 a year for us. So these would be examples of typical shippers that we might attract throughout the year. And although they generate relatively small amounts of TEU and volume on their own, they are important because we combine all of these small individual shipper units to collectively create a larger volume of cargo. And that is what the ocean carriers want to see. They want to see a critical mass of cargo that they can compete for and put on their ships. So some of this cargo that's here in Jacksonville, the new carrier will actually compete for. The carriers also know that some of these shippers here, the existing shippers will grow their volume when ship capacity is added. Including into an existing market that's underserved or into a new market that's not yet served. Because there are existing shippers who will bring us more volume as we add capacity. And the carriers know also they can induce volume from existing shippers and induce new shippers to come to us by simply adding a service here to a new trade lane that's not currently serviced at JAXPORT. So to just give you a little more context about this strategy, last year JAXPORT handled over 1.2 million TEUs total. These TEUs were imported and exported by more than 10,000 unique companies or unique shippers. And of these 10,000 companies, nearly 90% of them handle fewer than 100 TEU annually. So if you look at a lot of major container ports around the United States, they're built the same way we are, and that is with lots and lots of very small shippers with a few top ones, big ones at the top. So our container business is built much like others. And in this one new container service. As I mentioned, it'll be 20,000 TEU a year. The second reason this service is important is it gives us capacity, and that's space on a ship to sell to more shippers. So this is particularly important now because there's so little space available nationwide. If you look internationally on container vessels, there's just not a lot of space. So to add new international space on a container space is significant for us. And finally, I think beyond the direct benefit to us of TEUs and revenue, that every one of these new ships and every bit of this new cargo will generate new jobs and economic impact directly for our community and then more broadly throughout the state. And that's really our strategy. Bringing this new vessel service here it's important for us. It's really a testament to Eric Green's leadership. Eric worked directly, personally, to help bring this service here with support from his senior leadership team. And it's really a product of the vision and the leadership from our local and state elected officials and FDOT, all of whom have invested in our port and our transportation infrastructure here. And we have to have that in order to bring this business here. And when we do invest, this is what we're able to bring. And finally, I think it's a product of our sales team to leverage all these assets that have been built and to attract the shippers throughout the year and to build the business case and the professional relationships we need with the ocean carriers, with all these individual shippers, to create that critical mass to bring in a significant piece of business like this, and take advantage of all those assets and that investment that the city of Jacksonville, that the state of Florida, our elected officials, FDOT and others, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the federal government has invested in our assets. So today I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that process and all the players that really made that possible. Next month I'll return. I'll give a full report on an industry update, report on new shippers that are using our port, and an update on the new vessel service. But for today, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Robert? Robert, that's a great abbreviated report. It's, and Eric and I have spoken, but the securing of this ocean carrier, it's the largest thing I certainly know that's happened with the port other than dredging since my short tenure on the board. But I hadn't seen the statistics there where, 75% of our total TEUs come from 9,000, 10,000 carriers. And this is going to add another 20,000 from one shipper. I mean, they're big. I mean, I don't really get, and the deal's done, but this is a big win for JAXPORT. I just want to point that out. But thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next, we'll turn it over to our CEO, Eric Green, for his report and some remarks, and then welcoming again some of our special guests.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier this month, Fitch reaffirmed JAXPORT's credit rating as A stable, noting our versatile financial and operating position. Also mentioning JAXPORT had strengthened its senior debt structure position. And I would like to thank our financial team led by Beth McCaig for their hard work. The First Coast Worksite Wellness Council awarded JAXPORT the platinum level for our wellness program. We continue to support our employees' health. As example, the week of April 19th, we welcomed the mobile COVID vaccine unit to the Talleyrand and Blount Island terminals in order to make it easy for our employees, tenants, and customers access to the vaccine. Now for the occasion, sir. Let me start by thanking all of the guests who are with us today to celebrate one of JAXPORT's most significant and longest running partnerships. Immediately following this meeting, we will join the Puerto Rico Port Authority in signing a memorandum of understanding to affirm our ongoing work to grow maritime trade between our communities. Our partnership with Puerto Rico began more than 6 decades ago. From the trade's modest beginnings using the early small container vessels of the 1950s, we are incredibly proud and humbled by the success we now see today. The equivalent of approximately 800,000 TEUs moved between Jacksonville and Puerto Rico. Trade with Puerto Rico has held steady, even as our international volumes have grown as well. I'm often asked about the key to our success. There are 2 answers: diversification and partnerships. Puerto Rico is critical to both. Over the years, our state leaders, such as the Florida Department of Transportation, thank you, Mr. Secretary, City of Jacksonville, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and federal government have invested in our port, enabling our relationship with Puerto Rico to continue to grow. Under this MOU, we will collaborate on a number of key areas, including business development and marketing, relationship building with our current ocean carriers and shippers, and best practices in environmental protection, operations, and security. JAXPORT growth benefits the Puerto Rico Ports Authority. That growth benefits us. We are proud to do our part to grow this relationship, build on our past success, and create jobs and economic opportunity, both communities for generations to come. Mr. Chairman, today's event and the important relationship we have with Puerto Rico would not be possible without the people that are in this room with us now. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, and we're going to hear from some of our partners in just a few moments, but it's important to just continue to point out the trade relationship, the partnerships that we've had over the decades, as Merrick mentioned, with Puerto Rico are invaluable and so critical to the success of our port, and we hope that the relationship on the other side, everyone feels the same way. So with that, we've got a few guests we're going to ask to come up and make some brief remarks this morning. Our first guest to come with us this morning, many of you know, and it's been a vital success to the continued growth and success of our city. I want to take a moment to introduce Mayor Lenny Curry, who's with us this morning. Mayor?
Well, good morning. Eric, first I want to thank you for your leadership and the work that you do and collaboration, Mr. Chairman, with this board. I'm just so proud of all that the port has accomplished recently, and just keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Good morning. I want to extend a warm welcome to our friends and the delegation from Puerto Rico. Our city has enjoyed a fruitful connection and partnership with you for more than a half a century, and I'm glad to see that relationship strengthened here today. As everyone here knows, throughout the country, Jacksonville is the #1 port for trade for Puerto Rico, handling nearly 90% of the trade between them and the U.S. mainland. Much of that is due to the amazing maritime industry we have here in Jacksonville and with our leading companies. Additionally, Jacksonville and San Juan have been sister cities since 2009 through Sister Cities International. This memorandum of understanding today highlights that strong connection between Jacksonville and Puerto Rico and strengthens our efforts to collaborate when and where both communities can benefit. I applaud Eric Green, the board, and the amazing team here at JAXPORT. This signing today is just the beginning. Working together with our friends and colleagues in Puerto Rico, we'll continue to see greater job growth and economic development for the people of our communities in the years ahead. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. Next, we'd like to bring to the podium for some remarks this morning. Big thanks to our FDOT, and we've said his name a few times, but it's my pleasure to introduce the FDOT Secretary, Kevin Thibault. Kevin?
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, Monday morning, we're all ready to go. Glad to be here today. Beth, I'm glad that the check cashed. It was good to hear that. I was getting a little scared when you were making that announcement there. So again, thank you, Chairman. Thanks for having me here, and glad to be here to talk about the partnership. And you've heard a lot of words about partnership. You know, clearly the partnership we have with the ports here in Florida and JAXPORT, but also the partnership that we have actually with my counterpart in Puerto Rico, Eileen Velez Vega, Secretary of Transportation there. We have done some partnerships with her as she's taken over as the Secretary. So glad to see how we're continuing those partnerships. You know, this memorandum of understanding obviously formalizes the great partnership between JAXPORT and Puerto Rico, as you heard, and as we move into the future. It also recognizes all the hard work that was done into building the strong working relationships that is represented by this team here today. So a major foundation of this partnership is transportation infrastructure, including the navigation channels used by the ships, the waterside wharfs used to load cargo, and local roads, interchanges, and highway networks, which connect more than 85% of the Puerto Rican commerce to the rest of the nation. At JAXPORT alone, the state has invested more than $300 million over the last decade in transportation infrastructure. And you heard a little bit earlier by James. And some of those notable projects include the deepening and widening of the navigation channel to allow the two-way traffic and larger vessels, numerous rehabilitation of wharfs and upland cargo areas, and the highway connectors improvements at Blunt Island, Dames Point, and Talleyrand Marine Terminals. So these projects improve the mobility and safety of moving goods and people, which directly result in the cost savings to the mainland and Puerto Rican consumers. And because seaport infrastructure over the last 30 or more years, these investments made by the state of Florida will have multi-generational benefits and continue to support this important relationship for decades to come. So again, Chairman, thank you for having me here. Glad to be here as a partner. Thank you.
We're very fortunate to have such a strong support from our state, our governor. I think many of you know, I think with a lot of the non-recurring money, there's some money out there that's being proposed, dedicated to ports in the state of Florida. If we can get some more, that'd be great. But anyway. Yeah, we do. We do. We appreciate your leadership and the leadership of our fine governor, as we said. Now I want to recognize who I just met a moment ago, Puerto Rico Ports Director, Joel Pisa-Batiz. Thank you for being here this morning. Please come forward for your remarks, sir.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. Secretary Director, Ms. Rian, thank you for your kind welcome, hospitality. Thank you for your team. Mr. Chairman, I want to recognize the Mayor of the city, the Secretary of Transportation, all the corporate officials from domestic carriers that are here present. Thank you very much for being here in this, in my humble opinion, the beginning of great things we're going to accomplish together. Secretary Director Green told me that I need to deliver a speech of approximately 1 hour, so yes, kidding. I want to start my remarks sharing an anecdote. Last week I was in a meeting talking about infrastructure, a hot topic right now in DC, right? And suddenly he asked me the following question: Joel, why the Golden Gate Bridge is color red? It took me by surprise. I thought that the answer maybe because the architect wanted it that way. I thought to Google it. But before I answered, he told me, the Golden Gate Bridge is red because it's get painted every day. What he was trying to tell me is that building things are important, but maintenance is a secret of robust infrastructure. Today, JAXPORT and Puerto Rico Port Authority is building a bridge of collaboration and partnership. But let's keep maintaining daily that partnership on behalf of the economy of development for both cities. So today our work really starts. For the past years and 4 months, I have been leading the Puerto Rico Port Authority after 2 major hurricanes, earthquakes, and the unprecedented public health crisis brought upon by the COVID-19 pandemic. To put some context, the pandemic alone has accounted for over $28 million profit loss in the operation to the suspension of cruise ships operations. We are anxiously waiting for their activation to all the needed cruise ship industry. And like many others, our governor, the Honorable Pedro Pierluisi, has taken out the cry for action to the CDC. But today is not to talk only for hardship and calamities. Today I want to share a picture of resiliency and progress with you, a vision into how we're building a future for the PRPA, its stakeholders, and the people for Puerto Rico. As any other, the road to accomplishment begins with infrastructure. As recent as last week, our board of our abandoned dry dock in Pier 15 where a world-class maintenance, repair, and overhaul facility is to be built and operated to benefit the vital yet undeserved maritime industry in Puerto Rico. The facility will provide economic and accessible repair work and create unique job opportunities in such a technical field. In addition, we have been supervising and managing the PSPA's recovery program after Hurricanes Irma and Maria, which accounts over $200 million in FEMA funds and over $800 million in CDBG mitigation funds. We are also actively working with grant applications with MARAD to secure funding for vital infrastructure overhauls in Pier 15 and 16 in the San Juan Bay Area. The same holds with our relationship with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Thank you, Colonel Kelly and Tim Murphy. Despite our delicate financial situation, we will work in conjunction with the Corps to dredge our ship cruise piers next fiscal year. In addition, we have been working closely with the Corps of Engineers, the Governor of Puerto Rico, and our resident commissioner in Washington, Jennifer Gonzalez, to ensure that the San Juan Harbor dredging programs becomes a reality. The United States Congress allocated the funds to the commission of a feasibility study for this project, and the result came back favorably and highly recommended. Today, we eagerly await Congress to allocate funds for the project construction phase, which comes with a $62.1 million price tag. Federal funding will be 75% and the state match will be 25%. This project will widen and deepen navigation channels across San Juan Bay Area, ensuring time and cost-efficient operations for our stakeholders. For instance, this project will enable LNG carriers to deliver more natural gas on a given trip, reducing the cost that Puerto Rico consumers pay for power. Equally important, it will reduce vessels maneuvering procedures within the San Juan Bay Area as much as 30 minutes, possibly impacting our commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Speaking about LNG, I want to take the opportunity to thank some of our domestic carriers' efforts to modernize their facilities and fleet, some of which are even powered by LNG, reducing transit between Jacksonville and Puerto Rico substantially. For instance, take Tug Maritime. They construct two new ships powered by LNG, Isla Bella and Perla del Caribe, that have been dramatic effect in reducing the time of service between Jacksonville and San Juan to only 2.5 days. Equally important, we need to underscore the commitment of Crowley Maritime Corporation with Puerto Rico. They invested approximately $130 million in a world-class terminal in Isla Grande Pier. They installed 3 new gantry cranes and constructed a new 900-feet pier. Also, they built 2 ships powered by LNG, El Coquí and El Taíno, for the executive service between JAXPORT and Puerto Rico. Also, we are restlessly promoting the federalization of our piers in the southern region of Puerto Rico. There, Puerto Rico received more than 50% of its diesel supply and nearly 70% of its propane gas supply. Federalization of said piers qualifies them for many grants, programs, and other development opportunities administered by multiple federal agencies. In addition to the revitalization of our infrastructure, PRPA has been equally invested in forging solid relationships with its community of tenants, stakeholders. In doing so, understanding and attending their needs has been vital. First and foremost, we work directly with the Puerto Rico Shipping Association and the government of Puerto Rico to ensure the expedite vaccination of over 3,000 employees in the maritime industry. In short period that we have been leading the PRPA, we have assisted many of our tenants with mutually beneficial transactions that ensure their prosperity and the continuity of their operations. Take Trailer Bridge, for example. For the first time since they were established in Puerto Rico, Trailer Bridge was able to lease land directly from Puerto Rico Port Authority, not sublease, not middlemen. Transactions like this promote cost-efficient operation not only for the company but for Puerto Rico itself. But we Tug Maritime have been working closely to facilitate the construction projects to maximize flow and efficiency within their terminal operations. and we have always collaborated with Crowley to ensure the infrastructure needs are met. The same holds for the stevedoring industry. For example, Puerto Rico Terminals recently executed its first contract directly with Puerto Rico Port Authority, providing legal certainty and ensuring the continuity of all the so needed operations. And to ensure the safety of our tenants' operations, we are currently installing 78 brand new maritime fenders across piers in the Puerto Nuevo zone, where we receive 90% of all the goods to the island. But despite our endeavor to make Puerto Rico Port Authority the port it ought to be, success cannot be attained alone. With nearly 1.2 million Puerto Ricans living in Florida, and approximately 80% of consumer goods in Puerto Rico coming from JAXPORT alone, the connection is self-evident. True to that premise, today we signed a memorandum of understanding with JAXPORT to affirm and seal our maritime partnership and mutual commitment to creating opportunities for Florida and Puerto Rico. As Puerto Rico Port Authority's Executive Director, I firmly believe that this is not a choice, but rather an obligation to forge a partnership with our brothers and sisters in JAXPORT. May today mark the beginning of a new era of collaboration and allegiance for the common progress of the people of Florida and Puerto Rico. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Harbor deepening and channel improvements are critical to remaining competitive in the port industry. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has done a phenomenal job keeping Jacksonville's deepening project ahead of schedule and under budget. They are also working with the Puerto Rico Port Authorities to make improvements to the San Juan Harbor, as you heard just a moment ago. Joining us now from the Army Corps of Engineers, Colonel Andrew Kelly. Colonel.
Good morning. It's a great Monday morning and really happy to be here today. Just recognizing the partnership with two of our most important partners in Puerto Rico and right here at home in JAXPORT. Thank you so much. I will write a very detailed note to all of my bosses about under budget and ahead of schedule. That's a great thing, but seriously, you know, as we've gone through many years here at JAXPORT, working on the latest phase and nearing completion of that, so that's awesome, and really looking forward to getting started. We are ready to get started in Puerto Rico, so just really appreciate the partnership in this morning today.
Thank you, Colonel. Trade between Jacksonville and Puerto Rico creates tremendous opportunity for our communities, including many businesses here in Northeast Florida. Joining us now is Andre Wallace with JAX USA Partnership. Andre?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Eric, for all the work that you do along with your team. So, JAXPORT is the jewel in the region's economic success, contributing employment and capital investment and lending credence to our moniker as America's logistics center. Its reputation is extensive on a global scale, aiding the JAX USA team as we attract business from all over the world to expand or relocate to the Jacksonville region, particularly in the areas of advanced manufacturing and distribution and logistics. So often, when speaking with clients, both national as well as international, the port's leading reputation is well documented prior to our engagement. Their success is our success, and we are grateful to have their partnership as we strive towards increased economic prosperity for our region and businesses. Given that JAXPORT handles nearly 90% of all sea trade between Puerto Rico and the United States, our relationship with the island has never been stronger. JAX USA recognizes that there is a network of businesses both here and in Puerto Rico that rely on this important trade link between Northeast Florida and Puerto Rico. These existing businesses are important part of both of our economies and relationships and attracting and recruiting new trade partners to the region. More broadly, the shipping tie between Puerto Rico is an important foundation for JAXPORT to be successful overall, and has provided the resources for our port to grow its facilities to be a global gateway, which elevates our region's status as collaborative partner for our company's successes. The groundwork of the port's success, and therefore Northeast Florida's broader success involving companies needing or using our port, can be traced back to Puerto Rico. We look forward to more economic achievement for both our communities through a historic MOU between Jacksonville and Puerto Rico. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Andre. Now, before we move on to our ceremony in just a few minutes, we're going to hear from 3 Puerto Rican carriers who play a vital role, obviously, in ensuring the movement of goods between Jacksonville and Puerto Rico continues. We'll begin with Tote Inc. President and CEO, Tim Nolan. Tim?
Just want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the introduction there. Eric, thank you, sir. Great to see you. Joelle, thank you for making the trip today for this special event as well. Also wanted to recognize the mayor that's here today, Chairman as well as Secretary Tebow for being here. Tote is proud to call Jacksonville our home. We recognize the essential position that it plays in serving the island of Puerto Rico, with over 85% of the cargo moving to and from JAXPORT. We've served Puerto Rico for over 35 years. Over the past 5 years, we've made significant investment back into our business and into the Puerto Rico trade, be it new ships, reinvestments in our terminals, equipment, and in our systems, all designed to provide economic and service advantages to the people of Puerto Rico, our customers, and the communities that we serve, while also providing cleaner air for those coastal areas in which we operate. Tote is committed to Jacksonville and to Puerto Rico for the long term. Our organization was designed to support the people of Puerto Rico and the island in itself. No matter what the circumstance or what the challenge, we will be there to support you and the city of Jacksonville. We want to congratulate both Puerto Rico and Jacksonville on this special event today. We wish you much success, and you have our support in signing this MOU. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next, we'll hear from Crowley Maritime Chairman and CEO, Tom Crowley. Tom?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to be here today. Eric, thanks for the invitation to come. And we also thank our distinguished guests that have joined us here today. I'll just make my remarks quite brief. I just want to thank the Puerto Rico Port Authority for coming to Jacksonville and being a part of this here today. I think we've spoken about it already in the presentations, but the partnership that Crowley Maritime has established with the Port of Jacksonville has enabled us to make the necessary investments to serve the island. On the other side, the vital link, the supply chain that we have been able to create, our industry has been able to create between Jacksonville and San Juan, could not be possible for what's been done in Puerto Rico itself. That link that's been created is essential for the economy of Puerto Rico and for the people of Puerto Rico. And it's been a long journey to have made the investments that our industry has made, but it couldn't have been done without the partnerships that we created. And it's exciting for me to be here today to see Puerto Rico and Jacksonville come together and recognize that important link, that a link in a supply chain that is so essential. And I think when we look and see the advantages that we're able to create by this focus on such an important supply chain, the rest of the country is facing a supply chain breakdown. You're reading about ports that are congested and containers that are not able to be delivered. Well, we did have our challenges during the hurricane, but we have not had those same challenges now. And I think it's because of those investments we made, and most importantly, the partnerships that we've created to create that uninterrupted supply chain that's been so effective. So everybody in this room has a lot to be proud of with that. And I'm honored to be here to thank you and to let you know that we're here to be your partners forever.
Thank you, Tom. Last, certainly not least, we're going to ask up Trailer Bridge CEO Mitch Luciano this morning. Mitch?
I don't know what everyone was going to say, so I probably sound a little bit similar to Tom and Tim. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity, and thank you, Eric, for the invitation. We, as Joel mentioned, we've been in 30 years, we've been serving Puerto Rico as of this past April 1st, and we have signed our first lease agreement directly with the port, which was one of my goals when I got this opportunity to be CEO of Trailer Bridge back in 2014. So this is the heart of who we are at Trailer Bridge. I always tell people we're a growing organization, but our heartbeat is the people of Puerto Rico. They're a very passionate culture, and I always tell them that we have to carry that passion in whatever we do throughout the country, whether it's in Mexico, the US, or predominantly Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. So this is a very big deal for us with this new agreement with Puerto Rico. We plan on being here for many, many years to come, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Before we wrap up the business part of our meeting, I want to thank everyone again for being here. In just a moment, we're all going to move in an orderly fashion to my right. I think most people know where their seats are, where they should be going. And we'll give a moment as we can see the press is moving that way. Two things before we adjourn. I would look around to my fellow board members. Is there any other business to be discussed you'd like to bring before the board this morning? Don't see any. And finally, just, when you look around this morning, we take a lot of things for granted. We're in this wonderful cruise terminal. We've all got seats. We've got things to eat. And if you haven't had any of the banana bread over there, it is fabulous, out of this world. The microphones, the pictures, the logistics, the seating, the preparing me to conduct this morning. I think we have a big round of applause for all the JAXPORT staff who made this happen this morning. With that, we are adjourned. We will move over for the ceremony to my right. Thank you.